Good evening from London and good evening from me, Dr. Delmer Hudson, the chairman of the British Group for the Study of the Juche idea and chairman of KFA UK, and of course the owner of this very self-same channel, SONGUN007, the militant voice of Sangam and Juche in the UK, defending people's career with no ifs or buts, and a very warm welcome to everyone who's just joined to the 21st live stream. Yes, we've done 20 live streams so far, and this is the 21st. So it's a bit of a milestone. And of course, today is officially the first day of spring. And in people's career, today is a significant day because 51 years ago, on the 21st of March 1974, People's Korea passed the law on the complete abolition of taxation. So I'm going to be talking about that tonight. We've got quite a lot lined up. A couple of different subjects. So, I'll be talking for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and then the audience can bang away with a few questions, and I will do my best to answer them. I aim to sort of run for about an hour or maybe a bit over an hour if people have got more questions. So anyway, let's go. 51 years ago, the Supreme People's Assembly of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, on the 21st of March 1974, passed the law on the complete abolition of taxation. Thus, the DPRK became the first state in the world without taxation, a truly remarkable feat when you think about the fact that taxes have existed for centuries, basically as long as the state existed. Since that day, 51 years ago in spring, the people of the DPRK have been free from income tax and local taxation, but at the same time enjoyed free healthcare, free education, and free housing. Today, young and middle-aged Korean people of the DPRK do not understand the meaning of the word tax. After the liberation of Korea from Japanese imperialist colonial rule on the 15th of August 1945, the predatory tax system of the Japanese imperialists was abolished, and a popular and democratic tax system was established in the DPRK, thus putting an end to over 50 kinds of miscellaneous taxes and turning the taxation into a single one instead of having a lot of different taxes spread all over the place. In 1955, the government of People's Korea again cut the income tax of the workers and office employees by 50%, sharply reduced the tax burden of the handicraft workers, entrepreneurs, merchants, and decreased the agricultural tax in kind from 25% of the grain output to 21.1% on average. From 1959, it reduced the agricultural tax in kind to 8.4%. The agricultural tax in kind, which had been instituted right after liberation, was eliminated in the period from 1964 to 1966 for good, in accordance with the famous thesis on the socialist rural question in our country, which had been written by the great leader, President Kim Il-sung himself. And this important treatise was published in February 1964. As a result, there remained in the country only the income tax of the working people and the negligible local autonomy tax. Now, what does the local autonomy tax sound a bit like? It sounds like council tax. So anyway, the tax paid by the population amounted to 2% or less in the revenue of the state budget. Thus, abolishing taxation became the order of the day, as the great leader, Comrade Kim Il-sung, said. To abolish the tax system is a revolution to free the working people from these vestiges and a great change to meet the centuries-old desire of the people. The system of taxation which came into being with the emergence of the state has been used in a class society for thousands of years as a means of preserving the ruling machine of the governing classes and plundering the working people. End of quotation. Taxation for centuries has been a great burden for the working people, with people cursing taxation. There's an old saying that in life there are only two certainties, death and taxes. In the capitalist countries today, taxation is a very big problem. In recent years, under the austerity policies, taxation has increased in several capitalist countries, but at the same time, public services are being cut. And of course, we recently in the UK saw the horrendous cuts in assistance to disabled people being implemented by the Starmerite social fascist regime. Many workers in the UK have to pay a big percentage of their pay in tax and national insurance. On top of that, there is 20% value added tax, and there is council tax, which is very much a hot subject. I got my council tax demand a few days ago. I was quite shocked to see that it was being increased by 5%. There'd been a similar increase the year before, and it's now about £38 per month more than when I'd first moved in. And many UK local authorities are actually facing bankruptcy, even though they have put up council tax a lot. And you seriously wonder what the hell they do with the money. But anyway, I think that fact itself is testimony to the massive superiority of the DPRK's socialist system, and it shows the sheer inefficiency and incompetence and decay and decline of the capitalist system. And the fact they can't, even with massive taxation, can't properly manage their resources. I mean, in people's career, there are no local authorities going bankrupt, even though they do not have council tax. Anyway, to proceed, Abolishing taxation in the DPRK was a masterstroke which improved people's living standards. At the same time, thanks to increasing socialist production in the DPRK, public spending has increased many times over. This is a miracle. It is amazing that People's Korea has had 51 years without taxation. People's Korea is a real paradise for the working people thanks to the great Juche idea, the advanced socialist system, and the people first policies of respected Marshal Kim Jong-un. The abolition of taxation in the DPRK is a great inspiration to the working people of Britain in their struggle against austerity, exploitation, and oppression. Now, I'm going to address an interesting subject, and that is the DPRK's internationalist record, which is often downplayed or slandered, and it is a slander of the reactionaries and hirelings of the CIA that the DPRK is just purely nationalist, or it's ethno-nationalist, quote unquote. But in fact, the DPRK has an incredibly proud internationalist record, of which I have referred to in some of my books, particularly Korea of Juche. And I believe some academic scholars have recently published different books or papers on the DPRK's internationalist record, including one about the DPRK's role in South Africa, and I think a Canadian academic a few years ago published an article about the DPRK and the tricontinental movement. Anyway, the DPRK has actually punched above its weight in terms of internationalist assistance. President Kim Il-sung was a great internationalist who fought not only for the Korean people, but for the world revolution, for the liberation of all humanity from exploitation and oppression. Throughout his life, President Kim Il-sung gave unstinting support to the people, for the people's fighting for independence, and he met many different leaders and fighters and revolutionaries from across the globe, including such very distinguished figures as J.V. Stalin, Mao Zedong, Zhou Enlai, Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, Raul Castro, Colonel Gaddafi, Hafez el-Assad, Salvador Allende, Norodom Sihanouk, Enver Hoxha, Erich Honecker, Yasser Arafat, George Habash, and many others. Right from the start, President Kim Il-sung had always stressed internationalism and fought just not for simply the interests of the Korean people, but for the interest of the struggling peoples of the world, while at the same time stressing independence and self-reliance. Juche does not mean rejecting internationalism. Far from it. As President Kim Il-sung pointed out, our adherence to the Juche idea does not in any way mean that we have become chauvinistic. The Juche idea we advocate does not conflict with internationalism. Instead, it is designed to promote internationalism, for it leads to the development of sciences and the building of the economy to suit our particular conditions, and thus contributes to increasing the strength of our country and the might of the socialist camp as a whole. End of quotation. President Kim Il-sung, during the anti-Japanese armed struggle, actually put up the slogan, "Defend the Soviet Union." In 1929, he roused youth, students, and other sections of the masses to fight to defend the Soviet Union in order to hold in check the anti-Soviet machinations of the Kuomintang government and the reactionary land warlords who had provoked this incident at the instigation of the Japanese imperialists. President Kim Il-sung later wrote in his autobiographical reminiscences with the century, and I quote, "Our activities in connection with the Zhongdong Railway incident represented the internationalist struggle to defend the Soviet Union politically. At that time, we regarded the first socialist system established on earth as a beacon of hope and considered it our solemn internationalist obligation as communists to fight in its defense." End quotation. Later, in 1938 and 1939, President Kim Il-sung led the anti-Japanese guerrillas to defend the Soviet Union, the first workers' and peasants' state against Japanese aggression. The anti-Japanese guerrillas fought shoulder to shoulder with their Chinese comrades against imperialism. After Korea was liberated in 1945, President Kim Il-sung made sure that unstinting support was given to the Chinese People's Liberation Army and the Chinese communists in their revolutionary war against the Kuomintang reactionaries. He sent his best fighters, such as Kang Gong, as well as troops and materials to assist the Chinese People's Liberation Army, and even allowed them to use the northern part of Korea as their rear base, as a centre for rest and recreation. During those heady days of the 1960s and 1970s, when revolution raged throughout the world, President Kim Il-sung ensured that the DPRK punched well above its weight, giving support to many liberation movements and newly independent states. During the Caribbean crisis of 1962, the DPRK stood by Cuba when the revisionists and big power chauvinists abandoned it. DPRK diplomats and students in Cuba armed themselves, ready to fight side by side with the Cuban people. President Kim Il-sung called for international volunteers to be sent to Vietnam and sent the best pilots of the Air Force of the Korean People's Army to Vietnam, as well as tunneling experts and material assistance such as uniforms. During the 1973 October War between the United Arab Republic and the Israeli Zionists, a squadron of KPA pilots was sent to assist the Arab people in their fight against Zionist aggression. President Kim Il-sung also supported the Grenadian Revolution led by Maurice Bishop. He had DPRK construction experts sent to Grenada, and the DPRK gave a generous amount of military aid to the People's Revolutionary Government of Grenada. In fact, in per capita terms, the DPRK gave more aid to Grenada than the USSR did. President Kim Il-sung was the great friend of the Third World, who sent agricultural technicians and engineers to many third world countries such as Madagascar, Tanzania, Togo, Central Africa, Benin, Guinea, Egypt, Rwanda, Burkina Faso, Ghana, and the Seychelles. Agricultural institutes bearing the name Kim Il-sung were established in Guinea and Tanzania. This was genuine aid as opposed to the fake aid of the imperialists, which aims only to corrupt and enslave newly independent countries. Taking over the baton of leadership, Comrade Kim Jong-il, in practical terms, took measures to support the people of the world for independence. He saw to it that the DPRK supported countries like Zimbabwe and Nicaragua when they emerged as newly independent countries from the ruins of imperialism and neocolonialism. When socialism was frustrated in several countries owing to the nefarious moves of the modern revisionist traitors, Comrade Kim Jong-il rallied the socialist forces with the Pyongyang Declaration titled, "Let us defend and advance the cause of socialism." And in the declaration, it stated, "Ours is an era of independence, and the socialist cause is a sacred one aimed at realizing the independence of the popular masses." End of quotation. The DPRK, under Comrade Kim Jong-il, actively opposed imperialist intervention and warmongering in 1999 when Yugoslavia was attacked by the US imperialists and the NATO aggressors. And by the way, I remember this well. The DPRK strongly denounced it and held a meeting in support of Yugoslavia. The DPRK opposed both the Afghan and Iraq wars of US imperialism. In 2005, the World Conference on the Anti-Imperialist Cause of Independence in the 21st Century, under the sponsorship of the DPRK, was held in Caracas, the capital of anti-imperialist and independent Venezuela. The conference adopted a declaration which concluded with the words, "All the countries and nations advocating independence should firmly preserve the Juche character and national identity and settle problems arising in all fields, including politics, economy, military, and foreign affairs, their own way." And it underscored the need to boost international unity and solidarity among the anti-imperialist independent forces and intensify the study and dissemination of the Juche idea and Songun idea. And I was myself a delegate to that conference. Now, someone asked, I think in the last live stream, about the DPRK's relationship with the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I did promise I would look this up. And I can say that the DPRK established relations with the Congo, or Zaire as it was then, some 53 years ago. And I found an article on the DPRK Ministry of Foreign Affairs website from 2022, which was titled "Independence Against Imperialism, Historical Root of DPRK, Democratic Republic of the Congo Friendship." And just to quote a few bits out of it, 60 odd years ago, the Democratic Republic of the Congo declared its independence after having freed itself from the colonial rule of the West. Right after this, a crisis was created in this country. The legitimate government became completely unable to conduct its normal activities and functions in less than half a year, due to the high-handed intervention and aggressive maneuvers of the US imperialists. The US persistently schemed to overthrow the Lumumba government, which enjoyed absolute support of the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and to turn this country into a colony. At the end of 1960, the US instigated its lackeys into an insurgency and illegally arrested the state leaders, including the prime minister, speakers of the upper and lower houses, and other patriotic personalities, by marshalling their accomplices. The US committed the gangster-like act of forfeiting the state representative right of the Democratic Republic of Congo in the UN. Upon hearing this news, President Kim Il-sung, a veteran statesman in independent politics against imperialism, gave teachings for the government of our republic to support and encourage the people of the Democratic Republic of the Congo in their struggle to end the rule and interference of outside forces and consolidate its independence. President Kim Il-sung maintained his invariable stand that there may be large and small countries in the world, but in no way must there be higher or lower countries. And there may be developed and less developed countries in the world, but in no way must there be countries to dominate or to be dominated. Following the measures taken by President Kim Il-sung, the DPRK Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement and condemned criminal acts of the US and its accomplices in the violation of the sovereignty of an independent country, and declared our people's will to struggle together with the people of the Democratic Congo against the common enemy. Like this, the exceptional attention of President Kim Il-sung, the starting point for the historical tradition between the DPRK and DRC, was made, and this tradition is now being continuously consolidated and developed as required by the new era. Even in the face of the global health crisis and turbulent international situation, the DPRK and DRC are maintaining communication on a regular basis and making positive efforts to seek close cooperation in development of bilateral relations in the international arena. We continue, as ever, to strengthen the bonds of friendship and cooperation with the DRC, forged on the road of independence against imperialism and justice, in line with the common aspirations and desire of the two peoples. So that was a very interesting article from the DPRK MFA site about relations with the Congo. And lastly, I think it is important to address this subject. There's been a lot in the media about bourgeois tourists slandering people's career and the DPRK closing the border. Well, I think the DPRK not actually closing the border, but stopping receiving tourists to the northeastern region of the DPRK. And I think the DPRK was absolutely 100% correct to do this, because of these, hostile slanders of these so-called tourists. And I would say that probably such so-called tourists were from privileged middle-class bourgeois backgrounds who were not well disposed towards the DPRK and unable to see the vast advantages of Juche-based socialism. And I think people's class status does shape the way they see things, you know. And these are the sort of people who would spend £5,000 on a new kitchen and drink in trendy wine bars or eat in hipster restaurants. You know, and you know, they're just not going to see the vast achievements of socialism in people's career, because they are part of the elite in the West and get everything handed to them on a plate. I mean, we've got many KFA UK members who would love to visit the DPRK, but simply cannot afford to do so. And the whilst the media have been sort of playing up these false reports, our own KFA UK YouTube channel and the accounts connected to it was actually deleted. So it shows you how they are trying to control the narrative. And in fact, last year, I was actually the first British person to visit the DPRK for 5 years. I was told that at the embassy, I was the first British person since 2019 to get a DPRK visa. And when I returned to the UK, I was quite happy to be interviewed by the media, but no one stepped forward from the British media, not even the Morning Star, the so-called socialist daily. They did not offer to interview me, and the only interviews I got were with a Japanese journalist and a Belarusian woman journalist. I would add, I actually gave a lengthy interview on Skype to an ethnic Korean journalist working for the Wall Street Journal, but that was never published. Surprise, surprise. So the mainstream media actually adds to its barrage of propaganda and fake news about people's career by deliberately ignoring reports of genuine and honest visitors to the DPRK, and instead either publishing material from so-called defectors, traitors to the Juche motherland, or from very hostile tourists from very privileged backgrounds who also may have been debriefed by Western intelligence services and told what to say, or may have also been paid by the mainstream media to make up shock horror reports about the DPRK. And the chairman of KFA Staffordshire, I don't know if he's actually watching the stream tonight, and Secretary General of the British Group for the Study of the Juche idea, actually wrote as follows: the negative side of tourism to the DPRK is that it is only the seriously wealthy who can afford to go on commercial tours to people's career, taking with them their bourgeois attitudes and prejudices. For instance, these tourists, with their many travels to various countries around the world, will give the impression to their DPRK hosts that all stories about capitalism being an unjust system was wrong. The authorities in the DPRK, to even the balance, should invite more progressive people, such as those from the peace movement, anti-imperialist groups and trade unions, to witness Korean-style socialism in action. The best and most affordable way to see the DPRK is to either go on a KFA or Juche study group organised tour of the country. So I think that's is a useful word, few words about the subject. And lastly, before I stop talking and I start saying, uh, answering answering questions, I think we should be more aggressive in our actions to defend people's career. Uh, it got drawn to my attention that a so-called leftist or Green Party supporter. Well, I know a lot of people on this stream won't like the Green Party, down with them. But was a certain Green Party supporter was seen on Facebook sharing stuff from Link, so-called Liberty in North Korea, which is actually a far-right organization. The original founder of it, Adrian Hong, was responsible for committing a terrorist act against the DPRK embassy in Madrid. And this organization is very clearly funded by imperialism and has nothing to do with human rights, everything to do with propaganda and regime change. But, some idiots on the so-called left are supporting it. They are active in British universities. Now, we can start in a small way to counter their activities. We can post pro DPRK art responses on their social media site. That's something we've got to be doing. And generally we need to be upping our game, sharing videos like these, and getting more people to our events. Anyway, I will stop there, and I will scroll through the chat, start saying hello to people, because the chat was a bit slow today, and then I will sort of answer questions. So let's straight right. Yes, good evening to you, Gregor McIntosh. Good evening to our friend from Turkey. And yes, good sentiment. Down with Liz Kendall. I mean, horrible woman, and what she's doing to the disabled is absolutely sick. I mean, it is really like the Nazis, really. Hello to Defender of the DPRK. Yes. I didn't realise you were 51, George. But so yes, indeed, it is as long as you've been alive. Yeah, the book produced by our KFA delegate in Cambodia, The Myth of DPRK's Isolation, is very good book. I'll be sort of doing a bit to publicise it a bit later. I think I'll put it on different social media spaces. I've already shared it on our Telegram channels, but perhaps needs greater publicity. But thanks for drawing our attention to that, George. Yeah, thank you, Urban Educators. Great quote, and I forgot to use that. Yes, it is quite true, and I remember actually reading it at the time. The DPRK actually gave Cuba 100,000 AK-47 rifles, or the Korean variant of the AK-47, and of free of charge, which was an amazing internationalist gesture towards Cuba, and a great support from to Cuba at a time when the Soviet revisionists under Gorbachev, this was the so-called perestroika era, when the Soviet revisionists were actually pulling the plug on socialist Cuba. Well, in answer to the person who calls is put use username, I cannot say that decision will be taken by the Workers' Party of Korea and the Korean people, and it's not for us to indulge in speculation on the subject. This is the Korean people's choice. Yes, well, I'm glad you want to visit the DPRK in the future. One thing we must try to do is actually start fundraising to send KFA delegations to the DPRK. It's really something we need to do. And yeah, I mean, I totally agree with urban educators, 100%. Is it worth discussing CIA speculations? DPRK is not about leadership issue at all. Western narratives often focus on the games of the throne. The DPRK's principled revolutionary society is key. Yes, they have been doing the same with the Russian Federation and quashing Western journalists and often harassing them. Right, yes, we must all oppose the anti-DPRK idiots and scumbags and hooligans. Classical guitar. Do you know at all, or what extent of cooperation is there lately between Russia and the DPRK? And is the DPRK giving the Russian Federation material aid or troops to help their effort in Ukraine? Well, this keeps coming up all the time. There's no DPRK troops in Ukraine. I mean, we've refuted this many times. The main assistance the DPRK has given to the Russian Federation is been providing medical treatment and rest and recuperation for Russian soldiers who've been injured in the special military operation, and also giving holidays to children of Russian war veterans. That's the main help that's been given. And there is increasing cooperation between the DPRK and Russian Federation in the fields of economy, technology, and science. Right. Why do you think communist countries like China and the USSR keep reforming into capitalistic systems? Right. Well, firstly, China and the USSR were socialist countries, not communist countries. Communism is the higher stage of socialism in which everybody contributes according to their ability and receives according to needs. And no country in the world has actually reached that stage. DPRK will probably be first. But anyway, perhaps that is a bit of perhaps I'm being pedantic, but why do I think uh, that the USSR basically betrayed socialism and China reformed and opened up? Well, it's very simple. It's called revisionism. And I'm actually writing a book about the DPRK struggle against revisionism. And I think what happened in those countries was, yeah, it was revisionism. It was a deep seated illusion about capitalism, a lack of faith, a lack of confidence in their own system, a lack of belief in the superiority of their system. I mean, that's the reason. That's the reason why. Right. Just scroll down. Nordal Grieg. Why is the kid Starver not in the Tory party? No, I don't know. You better ask him that. I can't comment. I mean, funnily enough, the other day, I'd actually forgotten it was a Labour government in power. I thought the Conservative government was still in power. Maybe the Labour Party's turned into the Tory party. Right. What was DPRK relations with the pro-Soviet Democratic Republic of Afghanistan? Now, that is a good question. I wish I'd been given that one in advance, so I could have done a bit of research on that. Basically, the DPRK had, I'm speaking off the top of my head from memory. The DPRK had good relations with the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan. It strongly welcomed the Afghan, hope I'm pronouncing this right, the Sur Revolution, the April Revolution in Afghanistan. And the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan actually broke off relations with the South Korean puppet regime, which was good. And my understanding is particularly under Nur Mohammed Taraki, they were very close. And, I'm talking about 15 years ago, someone sent me, and I cannot find them because they're on a old computer. Someone sent me some PDFs of the Kabul Times for 1979 in which they praised the DPRK a lot. They were enthusiastic about the DPRK. But yeah, I mean, basically, the DPRK had very, very good relations with the DRA at all times. My understanding is they took a neutral stance on the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan, but it's a subject I would need to research a lot more. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff buried in the archives of different specialist universities like SOAS in London on this subject. So, I mean, maybe I'll try and pick up the point in the next live stream, do a little bit more research on it. Yeah, I'm not trying to evade the question. Now, see, a lot of stuff is coming up in the chat, so Just see what I need. Yeah, fair point, Gregor. China has become the world's largest revisionist power, not the hammer of the people, but the velvet glove of capital. The red flag belongs to the people, not Wall Street Mandarin. Yes, indeed, China is revisionist. Well, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if China is revisionist, then wouldn't Vietnam, Cuba, and Laos be so as well? Well, that's an interesting point. All the five parliamentary parties are the same nowadays, and I presume by the five parliamentary parties, you would mean Labour, Tory, Lib Dem, Green, and Reform UK. Mini revisionists. Interesting. Ah, does the WPB support people's career? Do you know? Well, I can I can I can answer that. Unfortunately, the problem with the WPB is that the leader, George Galloway, although he may be a charismatic figure to some, is actually quite anti-communist. I can testify. Back in the 1980s, he was attacking socialist Ethiopia, and he wrote a very bad book on Romania under Ceausescu, and over the years, he's made a few nasty jabs at the DPRK, and during the general election, for some reason, I do not know why, uh, he decided to mount a gratuitous attack on the DPRK, saying, "Oh, you wouldn't want to bring that here." That said, we should always avoid sectarianism, and in fact, uh, many rank and file members of the Workers' Party of Britain support the DPRK, and I know at least uh, one activist in the Northwest in the Workers' Party of Britain who is a fervent supporter of the DPRK, and came to two of our KFA meetings in Liverpool. And I'm sure there's other members of the WPB who actually support the DPRK. Right. Okay. Well, there's debates on different socialist countries. I mean, I personally regard the DPRK as the best socialist country, the most advanced socialist country, and the most consistent socialist country, which is upholding the red flag of socialism. But true, but the current Labour Party is so far to the right, they make people like Harold Macmillan, David Eccles, and Ian Gilmore look like Jeremy Corbyn. Well, that is true. I mean, I don't want to get sort of sidetracked into into long discussions about domestic UK politics. It's not really the aim of this live stream, but inevitably these things crop up. But the Labour Party has become so right wing. It's I was saying to someone the other day. In fact, it is actually Starmer is actually more right wing than Tony Blair, who apart from the Iraq War, a lot of the things Blair. The bad things that Blair was doing was actually more or less invisible to people, or put another way, you couldn't really see the obvious effects of them. Things like PFI in the health service and things like that. A lot of people don't realise a lot of civil service buildings got privatised. In the first few years under Tony Blair. Whereas Starmer is actually doing a lot of harm to people, and it's very much in your face, like the cuts to disability and like the increases in energy prices and water prices and in council tax. It's very much in your face. In your face, and as I say, as the person I was talking about Blair and Starmer said, that Starmer is actually Blair without charisma. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the Communist Party of Britain? Well, again, we're getting into like discussions on different UK communist parties. We have a lot of KFA members in the CPB. There was a few years ago a motion on supporting KFA, which was put before the CPB Congress, but was actually remitted to the executive committee. So I don't know what happened to that. I mean, I personally, I can't sort of make recommendations for or against different parties. I mean, I would view the CPB as revisionist, and the Morning Star, regrettably, in the past, has carried attacks on the DPRK, which is very bad. Admittedly, this was about nearly 12 years ago, but it it did happen. So I think that's very, very regrettable. Right, just making sure I don't lose myself in the chat, which is a danger. Well, I mean, with this subject, I've been to the DPRK and I've been to China, so I can comment on both of those. I have not been to Cuba, Vietnam, or Laos to be able to comment in detail about those countries. Some of the stuff I've seen about Vietnam hasn't been very good. And, about a couple of years ago, I think about 5 or 6 years ago, I was interviewed by a Vietnamese journalist. And he told me that I couldn't say anything negative about South Korea because Vietnam has relations with South Korea. So you know that doesn't give me a particularly positive impression of Vietnam. And Cuba, well, regrettably, last year they established relations with the South Korean puppet regime. I've, heard very mixed reports about Cuba. I say it's somewhere where I haven't been, so I've only got, I only know what I've been told by different people. A lot of people sing the praises of Cuba, can't praise it enough. However, a few years ago, in fact, 7 years ago, when I was on a delegation to the DPRK, and on the delegation was someone who had been to Cuba, and he said, Pyongyang was a contrast to Havana, and his words were, "Not a brick is out of place here," but he said, "Oh, Havana is crumbling." He said in that aspect he preferred the DPRK to Cuba. Now, others who've been to Cuba have actually described it as a hybrid society, because they have introduced some market forces. They do have a private sector, private farming, and some private businesses. However, I'm not going to dismiss Cuba, and I recognise they are in a very difficult situation with due to the US imperialist sanctions, which are likely to increase under Trump. He is no friend at all of Cuba or any socialist country, and I don't think he's going to try and use the tactic that Obama was using of trying to soften up Cuba and try to lead them to a reform and opening up. That's what I think. And because a few years ago there were counter-revolutionary disturbances in Cuba, and the reasons for that were the US sanctions and blockade, and also US ideological subversion. But it could be argued that there was a third factor, and that was some of the measures that the Cuban party had taken. And if you want to press me on the subject, I would say Cuba was better under Fidel Castro and Raul Castro, and of course in the era of Che Guevara. But I mean, as has been said before in this live stream, it's not really for us to judge or to try and resolve other countries' problems for them. Britain has lots of flunkies blindly in love with China. Just make sure I haven't missed anything here. There's a danger with these chats of comments getting missed. Yeah, I mean, in Britain, a seat with GBML supports the DPRK. The New Communist Party supports the DPRK, and the Revolutionary Communist Party of Britain, Marxist-Leninist, supports the DPRK. And to some extent, so does the old Reg Birch party, the CPBML, which used to be Britain's biggest Maoist party. Right. Do people in the DPRK understand English? Well, not to get too involved with this question, basically, English is taught in DPRK schools, and from the 1990s, it became the main foreign language that was taught in DPRK schools. Previously, it had been Russian, but in the 1990s, it became English. That's what I can answer. And yeah, I mean, some people in the DPRK speak Chinese, but I'm not sure whether it's Mandarin or Cantonese or Han Chinese. Defender of the DPRK, many YouTubers out there who like to say that capitalism used to have good old days. Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean about that. Right, James Brown. Well, I did sort of answer that question in the presentation that I made at the beginning, which seems to be a long time ago. I mean, I think the DPRK closed the borders to tourists because of the hostile activities of the tourists in slandering the DPRK and carrying misinformation. I think that's why it happened. I'm not sure whether I agree with those comments about the Voice of Korea website, but uh, something I'm not discussing, as I think these things are pretty much in the eye of the beholder. So, oh yes, I forget who Lewis Cole was, but Yeomi Park obviously is the worst, and yeah, the trendy Zimbabwean traitor as well, who made an anti-DPRK film on Channel 4 about a year ago, about 6 months ago as well. Yeah, they you're quite right. They are sunk in a cesspool attacking the DPRK. Jordan 2804. Dr. Hudson, are you afraid of growing influence of billionaires on UK politicians, like in the US, where nobody elected Elon Musk, and yet he's in the White House on a daily basis? Right. Okay. Well, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I actually agree with you, except I'm not afraid. But yes, I mean this is happening, and the power of these people like Musk, Zuckerberg, like Bill Gates, etc., is massive. It's overpowering, but no one elected them, and they're not accountable. And yeah, in the UK, the influence of billionaires, which was always there, as it was in the US, is also growing. And again, trying not to turn this into a sort of live stream on domestic UK politics or denunciations of Starmer. But one of the things they did in Britain was to give direct control of public spending to businessmen, to bring them in to advise about public spending, which no government, either Labour or Tory, had ever done before. Yeah, I will sort out the website, and that be put on my list. Yeah, Drew Binsky. I've just about heard from him. Just about heard of him, and yeah, and he's yes, another one very much in the cesspool. Well, again, this bit is a specialist subject about DPRK and Myanmar. Basically, the old military regime of Ne Win, which styled itself as socialist and called themselves the Burma Socialist Program Party, which Burmese people regard as fake, had relations with the DPRK, but actually fitted the DPRK up in cooperation with the US and South Korea, and the DPRK was blamed for an explosion in Yangon, which killed some members of the South Korean puppet regime who were visiting Burma at the time. But interestingly, it didn't actually kill Chun Doo-han, the South Korean military fascist dictator. And they actually, Burma or Myanmar severed relations with the DPRK for a very long time and only restored them, I think, in 2007. But I think at the moment they are the relations are very minimal. The present military regime that came to power in 2021, I think I've got that right. Time has passed by very fast. Has not engaged with the DPRK at all, and the DPRK has not reached out to it either. Well, Koreans read all sorts of books, obviously books on politics and ideology, the works of the great leaders, but they're also very keen to read books on science and technology, as well as novels and poems, and different foreign books have been translated into Korean. I've met Koreans who've read Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities, yeah, in Korean, which was translated into Korean, and I believe some works of Dickens and Shakespeare, for example, were translated into Korean. Yeah, I mean, This Monstrous War is a very good book, and also Burchett wrote another book called Again Korea, which I think was written in 1967, and he visited the DPRK again in the 1970s and had a talk with President Kim Il Sung. I did not realise that Burchett had actually gone to Burma as well. Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. Right, right. Okay, a question about my uh, PhD, which I will try to answer very briefly. My doctorate in the DPRK is a doctorate of socio-politics. I actually took it through the Korean Association of Social Scientists, and when I was visiting the DPRK in October 2015, it was suggested by Professor Kim Chang-won of the Korean Association of Social Scientists, and by the way, he appears briefly in the film The Propaganda Game, that I should write a dissertation about the defence of Songun and the reality of the DPRK today. And so, I mean, I did that, and it was through distance learning, through email and through the embassy that I did that. Originally, it was going to be an MA, but that's it got up to a doctorate, and I went back to the DPRK in April, where we had a lot of different discussions and seminars, and I was called to defend the dissertation at a gathering of DPRK academics. It was 15 different DPRK professors and assistant professors, including from Kim Il Sung University, Kim Chok University, I think University of National Economy. And, it was quite, it was quite intense. There were questions that I hadn't thought about, but in the end, they went away and took a vote and decided to award me the doctorate of socio-politics, and I was awarded it along with several other people at the Muncie Day Assembly Hall of the Supreme People's Assembly. I mean, that is the story about my doctorate in a nutshell. Again, I can talk more about it in another time as we're running out of time, and and I can see more questions. Yes, I agree. No South Korean wants US soldiers on their soil. Well, I agree with that point. Yes, DPRK needs to represent itself more on the world stage, and it is doing that. Yes, I know that the study Juche YouTube account. Yeah, I agree with what Gregor says about the interview. I don't think we've got time to discuss such rubbish. I totally agree with Urban Educator. Trolls carry no weight, no truth, no history, just noise. We carry memory, struggle, and the fire that never dies. Long live DPRK and Juche. Well, thank you for that, Urban Educators. I think that's a great uh, remark to conclude on. So I'm going to conclude here because actually gone on for a little bit longer than I've intended. Well, again, just this is going to be the last question I answer. Architecture in Pyongyang reminds me of illustrations from Soviet science fiction books about future life. Is it a special design for the capital, or are other cities have such designs as well? Well, firstly, the DPRK's designs are their own. They are Juche orientated. I don't know why you're trying to reference them with the Soviet Union, or try to imply that DPRK is a copy of the Soviet Union. Basically, in the DPRK, architecture is being updated all the time. There's a lot of innovation going on, and also each city will have its own designs specific to its locality. So they won't be a sort of copy of other cities. So anyway, that's to briefly answer that point. So before I go, because so we've gone on for a bit longer than I really intended to, but I think it's been a great live stream. I think people have been putting forward some very good points, very lively discussion. But we need to up our game. We need to reach outside of the internet and get our arguments across to more and more people. And as I said, we should be more aggressive and combative in countering anti-DPRK arguments, particularly organisations like Link. We should start bombarding their social media with pro-DPRK comments. And as I said before, it'd be great if KFA UK members at universities could set up branches there. And what is most important is always feet on the ground. Live streams like this are great. And our social media work has expanded considerably. We've got about 750 subscribers on Telegram. And so we're way over 9,000 followers on Twitter. I mean, this is good, but what we need is people actually coming to meetings. where you can hear face to face about the reality of people's career, and about the Juche idea. We're having a meeting in London on the 5th of April in central London. All the details will be on so our social media, and we'll also be having an online meeting on the 12th of April, and we've got the film night again online on the 31st of March. So please, check out those events, and if you're able to travel to London on the 5th of April, please do so. I'm sure it will be a great event, and we've got some great speeches being lined up. And lastly, we've got publications about the DPRK that I've that I've written, or that have been collectively written, or co-authored. It's on lulu.com. I recommend this book, The Great Conspiracy Against People's Career, which has very detailed information about the shadowy forces, the hidden secretive cabals that work against the DPRK. The propaganda networks have been created. So I strongly recommend that book. And see, there's more comments. I mean, form a network with others that support the DPRK. Well, the network is the Korean Friendship Association, KFA UK. We're on Telegram, we're on Facebook, we're on WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter. So that is the network, and we also have the British Group for the Study of the Juche idea. Anyway, thank everybody for being on the stream tonight. I think it's been great, and I'll see you all again in about 2 or 3 weeks, and hope to be able to meet some of you in London on the 5th of April. Thank you very much for watching, and people who put thanks, you're very welcome. See you all again. Goodbye.